Chris Taylor, Executive Director of the Arizona Church Security Network, and today we're going to continue our video series on why we need safety and security teams in our houses of worship. Today we're going to look at 6 different types of events or incidents that may occur at a house of worship. These 6 areas are areas that we want your safety and security ministry team to be prepared in advance to respond to in the event that one of them takes place at your house of worship. As we look at these events, we know that the first event is the most likely to take place, and that is medical emergencies. We recognize that far more than security incidents, we are likely to have medical emergencies take place at our houses of worship. Whether that's a cardiac event, stroke, diabetic issue, or a wide variety of others, we have to recognize the need to be able to respond and to provide care until the professional emergency medical service responders are able to arrive at our house of worship. The second area that we want you to think about and plan for in your safety and security ministry is that of people in crisis. We know people in crisis are drawn to our churches, and we need to be prepared to not only minister to those people, but also to respond in case their intentions turn to potential violence or potential acting out behaviors. And so we want to have a plan in place in advance for how we're going to handle people that are in a state of crisis as they respond or as they come to our church and to our messages. The third area that we want you to think about is going to be disturbances and protests. What we know is there have been many more disturbances and protests over the course of the last year. When we look at the hostile events we talked about in the previous video, many of those can take the form of disturbances and protests. So we want your team and your church leadership to have policies and procedures in place for how they're going to respond in the event of a disturbance or a protest at your church. The next area we need to be prepared for is criminal activity. Unfortunately, our churches are not shielded from the criminal activity that can take place at any organization or any business. So as we look at criminal activity, this can take many shapes, starting at vandalism and burglary and other property-related crimes, all the way up into sexual assaults and active violence events. And so we want to look at our crime prevention strategies and our response plans in the event that we have criminal activity taking place at our churches. The next area that we want you to consider is going to be sex offenders. What we recognize is that our churches are attractive to sex offenders. Sex offenders are looking for places where there are children or vulnerable adults, and they know that our churches are always looking for people to serve in the ministries. We also know that our child sexual predators and our sex crimes predators are more likely to be religious than non-religious. And so many of them have identities that are wrapped up within the Christian organizations in our churches. And we're going to talk more about that in one of our upcoming videos. But we need to make certain that we're always on guard to protect the children and all of those in our congregations from sexual predators. And then the last area that we need to consider is active violence events. We need to be prepared in the event of an active shooter or active attacker coming to our house of worship, and we need to know how we're going to respond. Not only as a safety and security ministry, but what if we taught our congregants? What if we taught our staff about how we respond in the event of an active violence event or incident taking place at our house of worship? So as you're forming your team, or if you already have a well-established team, we want you to think through these 6 areas, including medical emergencies, disturbances and protests, people in crisis, criminal activity, sex offenders, and active violence events. Join us next time as we start talking about each one of these types of incidents in greater detail.